Yeah, no, I was on February 20th, 2023. I was attacked in my bed by a spiritual being and clawed and left me scarred. And do I understand what happened? No, of course I don't. I don't really understand anything, but that did happen to me. I don't care if people believe me or not. It did. And I think it was just a momentary glimpse of something that's happening at all times, which is, again, this war between forces that we can't see, not since we dropped the atomic bomb in Nagasaki, the second one in August of 1945, and decided that we were gods, and the God himself no longer existed. Since then, we have been a secular society, and that's why we're now being destroyed, in my view. I care about this country and what happened to it after 1945, and it's a very clear demarcation line, and it seems obvious to me that nuclear weapons are demonic. There's no upside to them at all, and that anyone who claims otherwise is either ignorant or doing the bidding of the forces that created nuclear technology in the first place, which are not human forces, obviously. And let me just ask you this, which I've asked a million people at dinner parties, but never in public. What was the moment we can point to that nuclear technology was invented? You know, we can point to Isaac Newton and say, what apple fell on his head? Or we can point to Albert Hoffman in his lab messing around with the, ergot bacteria. That's when LSD was made. I've never met a person who can isolate the moment where nuclear technology became known to man. And so where did it come from exactly? Oh, German scientists in the 30s. Really, when? Name the date. And I've never heard anybody do that. It's very clear to me that these are demonic. I mean, these are evil. Their only purpose is to destroy the innocent, to murder the innocent. They've only been used once, and I think there's an interesting ethical debate about their use. Was Truman right or whatever? But if you take 3 steps back, you could say, well, wait a second. If you end incinerating tens of thousands of civilians, that's just a bad thing. Let's just be honest. That's just a bad thing. And anyone who does that is going to pay consequences. It's just true. And by the way, the fact the second bomb was dropped on the Christian population of Japan, which was majority in Nagasaki. In fact, it was sighted in on a church in Nagasaki. Was that an accident? Why Nagasaki exactly? And by the way, why has every subsequent American war resulted in disproportionately the deaths of Christians? That would include Vietnam, by the way, where the Catholic population was decimated, up to and including Iraq and Syria, now in Russia. Why is it that our use of force consistently since the end of the Second World War has been against Christians? That's been the effect to Christians. The bombing of the Balkans in the 90s under NATO. Why is that? And I just don't think it's an accident. Clearly, it's not an accident.
Throughout the Biden presidency, Facebook, then Twitter, all censored opinions the Biden administration didn't like. And they did this ultimately because they feared having their legal protection revoked. That's why they did that. That's what got them to act. And Republicans, the sensible ones, looked at this and said, this is completely wrong. It's totally immoral. It's illegal for the U.S. government to be imposing censorship on its citizens. It's against the Constitution of the United States, and it's against, more important, natural law. These are not rights we were given by the Biden administration. These are rights we were born with. And when you take them away from us, you are the criminal. And they made that point. All of a sudden, you are seeing Republicans take the position that Beto O'Rourke and Joe Biden took just 5 years ago. And by the way, the pretext always changes. They will always give you an excuse, and that excuse will make them sound like the virtuous party, like the good guys. We're here to save the vulnerable. But that's never the real reason. Censorship always and everywhere is imposed with the intent and always has the effect of shielding the powerful. They're the ones who don't want to be exposed. Free speech, by contrast, and this is the reason it's in our Bill of Rights, is the one great power that the powerless have. Especially in a world where your vote may or may not matter. All you have is your voice. All you have is your opinion. And that's infuriating to Lindsey Graham's donors. And make no mistake, when he's calling for invoking Section 230 and taking it away, threatening the big platforms, he's doing that on behalf of his donors who feel criticized by random accounts on the internet. And they hate it because the people in charge always hate to be called out. Censorship has one goal, and that's to preserve secrecy. And secrecy has one purpose, and that's to abet wrongdoing. So people who are doing nothing wrong are transparent. People who are committing evil hide, and censorship allows them to hide. It's literally that simple, and those people are the most powerful people in the country. So who's encouraging this? The donors, whoever they are, but there are lots of lobby groups, all of them on the left, pushing the Republican-led Congress to get behind censorship initiatives using the cover of the Section 230 debate to get it done, to pressure the tech companies into making you shut up, into taking your opinions off the internet, using algorithms designed to censor you without even a human being entering into the equation. No person will decide that your opinion is offensive and pull it off. The computer will decide that, and it will be aided by the massive exponential growth in computing power that is at the very center of tech right now, AI. That is the goal, to make certain that opinions that are disruptive to the people in charge never see the light of day. What's amazing, and what's especially infuriating, is that many in the Republican Party, the party that controls all branches of government right now, are completely for this, strongly for it. Where did they get this idea? Is this a betrayal? Oh, it's a betrayal. How profound a betrayal? Noticing that the American population has changed completely in the past 30 years thanks to immigration, that's dangerous hate speech. You should be punished for that, for noticing it in your country that you were born in. No noticing. You can't notice that it looks completely different because of decisions that someone who never consulted you made without your knowledge. Shut up, says the ADL. You not only don't have the right to speak, we're going to scream at you and imply that you are the dangerous one, the people who opened up the borders to 50 million foreigners. But you're the dangerous one. Sure. You know what else is hate speech, by the way? Reading the Gospels of Matthew or Mark or Luke or John. The gospel itself, Christianity itself, is hate speech. I know that because 3 nights ago, I recounted the Christian story in its essence over like 5 minutes and was immediately denounced by the ADL as someone who was dangerous and inspiring murder. But I'm not the only one. The ADL has actively attacked the Christian gospel for years, has gotten behind a definition of hate speech that includes the Christian story. That's not an exaggeration. That's not a fervid conspiracy theory. That's a fact, and you can look it up. So this is the guy? That's the guy, Jonathan Greenblatt, of the most aggressively left-wing, Democratic-aligned, but much more important than that, lunatic, anti-human, anti-American group, the ADL, completely corrupt. He's consulting that guy to decide how much speech you should have because there are ugly opinions on the internet? Yeah, that's your Republican Party. Was he denounced by his fellow Republicans in the House? Was he denounced by the Speaker of the House, Speaker Johnson? No, he wasn't. They barely even noticed because they have the same views. Not all of them, but an awful lot of them. It's unbelievable, and it's counterproductive. Because once again, censorship is never enacted to help the powerless. It is always and everywhere an effort to shield the powerful, always. And in fact, it has a counterproductive effect on the people it is supposedly designed to help. How would you feel about any person you're not allowed to criticize? Would that make you like the person more? No. It would make you resentful and suspicious. And it would give you the well-deserved opinion that this is not an egalitarian society in which we're all citizens. It's a hierarchical society in which the government has decided some people have more rights than others. So if you find out you're not allowed to criticize someone else, maybe the first question you might ask is, well, then why are people allowed to criticize me? And the answer is because some people have more power in our society or are being used to pit different groups against each other, or who knows what's going on. But none of it is consistent with the core promise of this country, which is we're all citizens under our government and we're all equal before our God who made us. It says that. But increasingly, that's not the country we live in. We live in a country where some people have more rights than others. And that's exactly the kind of message you would send if you wanted to foment a revolution against your government, because it enrages people and it divides them from each other. Oh, we have to protect this group. What does everyone else think of that? They secretly don't like the group. You're not ending bigotry by enacting censorship. You're creating it, Dumbo. And this is specifically aimed at Congressman Bacon, who was somehow an Air Force general. He can't be dumb, but he's obviously not very thoughtful, because this is very obvious. People don't like other people who get special treatment. Were you never a child? You never learned that? Who knows what the purpose here? It doesn't even matter. It is happening right before us. The people who are elected to protect us, who say they're our friends, are selling us out. And you can theorize as to why. And by the way, all of that theorizing is itself unhealthy. Where do conspiracy theories come from? Where do you think they come from? They come from living in a country where the government will never explain anything and lies constantly. So the next time you see someone in power complain about malicious conspiracy theories, stop him in mid-sentence and say they exist because of you. If you would just tell the truth, if you would live like Charlie Kirk and answer the question politely, reasonably, fully, there wouldn't be a vacuum into which lunatics would rush. We would have a plausible answer to basic questions like, what the hell is going on? But because you haven't provided that, what do you think's going to happen? People are going to have some pretty far out explanations. And maybe some of them are true, by the way. We don't know. Your behavior is so suspicious because you can't answer any question straight. Any. And you're spending your time talking to Jonathan Greenblatt, one of the darkest, most corrupt people in our society. Truly a divisive figure. Speaking of divisive, how many Americans have made fellow Americans hate each other more consistently over the years than Jonathan Greenblatt? Very, very few. Very few. And you're talking to him? So if this sounds like a paranoid rant, like, oh, that could never happen, well, you should know that it is happening right now in the state of California. The state of California, like 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, 8 days ago, something like that, has passed a law in the state legislature, both chambers of the state legislature. It awaits a signature from Gavin Newsom that would ban hate speech on the internet in California. Hate speech. Now, how do they define hate speech? I actually have the definition. I actually wrote it down because I was so shocked by it that this is happening. The state of California, if Gavin Newsom signs this law, and he has until October 13th to do it, people will be fined if the censors determine that speech constitutes, and we're quoting now, violence, intimidation, or coercion. What's intimidation or coercion? Right. Right. Or coercion based on race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, immigration status, or other protected characteristics. Obviously, white Christian men are not covered under that. And so the society becomes ever more hierarchical, with a Brahmin class and untouchables at the bottom, the opposite of the country all of us over 50 grew up in, that had an egalitarian spirit where some were rich, some were poor, some were smart, some were dumb, some had good jobs, others were unemployed, but all of us were considered equal under the law and equal in the eyes of God. And that concept is the basis of a stable society, any stable society, and it was the basis of stability in this country. And laws like this and the attitudes that give birth to them, to laws like this, have made it wildly unstable. Wobbly, it's so unstable. So as of October 13th, that could become law. Now that's a censorship law. Now they'll say, no, we're actually getting the platforms to censor. Well, right. You're getting someone else to do the job for you. But if you hire a hitman and he carries out the hit, you're the murderer. He participated in it, but you hired him. And that's exactly what's going on here. The state of California, under Gavin Newsom, is about to, we think, censor the opinions of Americans, not to protect anybody, but to shield themselves from criticism so they can continue to do what they want to do in secret.
If you enjoyed today's video on Anonymous Official, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks for watching and sticking with us.